It was a cold winter day. The air was so silent that it felt like you could hear the sound of each snowflake landing. Elif was on her way to meet childhood friends she hadn't seen in years. They had agreed to meet at an old cabin deep in the forest. The forest, blanketed in snow, looked like an endless white sea. But something felt off. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was unnerving. Her friends were waiting for her at the cabin. Ellie followed the snowy trail. As the snow crunched under her boots, she suddenly heard a faint melody coming from the depths of the forest. It sounded like a music box, distant yet unnervingly close. Ellie stopped and looked around, but there was no one there. She kept walking, but the melody seemed to follow her. Finally, she arrived at the cabin and knocked on the door. There was no response. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cabin was warm and the fireplace was lit, but her friends were nowhere to be seen. On the table, she found a note. Elif, follow us. We're at the waterfall. Without hesitation, Elif left the cabin and headed toward the waterfall. The snow was falling harder now, and the cold was biting. As she walked, the melody returned. This time it was clearer. She followed it until she reached the waterfall. But the waterfall was frozen, and there was no one there. Suddenly she noticed footprints in the snow, her friends' footprints. They led behind the frozen waterfall. Hidden there was a small cave. Elif hesitated but stepped inside. The melody grew louder as she ventured deeper. The cave's walls were etched with strange symbols and drawings. She didn't know what this place was, but the further she went, the stronger the sense of dread became. At the end of the cave, she found a massive ice pillar. Inside the pillar were the frozen silhouettes of her friends. Their eyes were closed, their faces locked in an expression of fear. Elif froze in horror. As she turned to leave, she saw the music box perched atop the ice pillar, playing its haunting tune. Suddenly, she felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. She spun around and saw a tall, ghostly figure, entirely white, its face blank and featureless. The figure slowly said, "You found me." Elif bolted, trying to escape the cave, but her feet felt heavy in the snow. The ghostly figure followed her. Just as she thought she couldn't run any further, the forest was suddenly bathed in light. She opened her eyes and found herself back at the edge of the waterfall, but her friends were nowhere to be seen. The snowfall stopped as she began her trek back home. Yet, as she left the forest, she heard the faint sound of a music box playing behind her. And then a whisper. "This is just the beginning. The end."